Everyone says they're looking for add value deals, but what exactly does that mean? Today we're going to go over it, what add value is for self-storage. In self-storage deals, we're looking for add value opportunities. Add value is where we really make our money. You make money by adding value to the property. So we're going to cover how to identify add value opportunities. The first way is just having the first initial conversation with the seller. When we're having these conversations with the seller, we're asking them about the property. Are they using certain softwares? Do they have automation in place for their gate? Do they have security cameras? Do they have exterior lighting? What kind of driveway aisles do they have? Are they gravel? Are they paved? These types of things you're asking about the property are identifying where you can add value to the property instead of having it be grass or gravel. Now you have a paved driveway. That's going to attract a different type of customer, allowing you to increase the rent. If you don't have a gate and you don't have that extra security that most people want, then you're probably not going to be able to charge as much as your competition. So you're looking with your initial conversation what the seller is lacking on his property and what you can add to it, spend on a capital expenditure, a CapEx expenses to increase the value of this property. On these initial conversations also, we typically ask, what are they doing for marketing? Do they have a website? These identify other add value opportunities for you as well. You want to ask also if there is any room for expansion. Now, we typically can view the property through an aerial, Google View, Google Earth, and see what is possible to add value, but we typically want to ask the seller directly if they see expansion opportunity as a possibility, or if they've gone through any processes with the city to go in that direction of expansion. Because a lot of these sellers may have already gone through that legwork of talking to the city and found out what is possible or what is not possible. Either way, you want to double check and talk to the city directly, but to get an indication initially, you want to ask these sellers those questions. Utilizing Google for Street View or going out to the site is another great way to identify add value. Our first property that we bought, we drove to the property. It was on a major highway, and when you pass it, you can barely see what the property was. There was no good signage, and the building was white with white doors. So you couldn't even really identify what the building was, and that they were offering storage as a service. And so for us, being on that property and driving by that property, we saw that this property needed essentially like a spark. We needed red doors and it needed new signage. So that was add value opportunity, because the major highway with so many cars going by, no one really even knew what was possible. So we added signage showing where the entrance was, and also painting the doors red where you can clearly identify that this is a self-storage facility and you should come in and utilize our services. That kind of cosmetic work to the property, painting doors, making sure the property is clean, that kind of curb appeal is important for customers. When they come up to the property, they want to make sure they see the property that's clean and well taken care of. Your ideal customer is really your mom. Your mom, a lady who's going to go potentially by herself to this facility. So you want to make sure it's clean, it's secure, and there's a lot of lighting. So exterior lighting, especially at night, you want to make sure it's bright and they feel safe going to this property by themselves. Some of these properties we've purchased, I wouldn't feel safe going into them at night, So you want to make sure that it's secure, it's safe, it's clean, and it not only appears that way, it is that way. Now, once you have those initial conversations with the seller, you've built a great rapport, and now they have the confidence in you that you're going to perform and you're a real buyer, and they hand you over the financials, their profit and loss statements, their income statements. If you don't know what that is, we have a video right here you can check out. We go over a profit and loss statement, and you should check out that video. So you have the P&L. First part of the P&L is the income. So along with the P&L, you will also need a unit mix, which is the breakdown of the units and what they rent for. So that's where you can see if you can increase the rents. So if you can increase the rents for 10 by 10s because everyone else in your competition is charging $100 and you're charging 70, well, you can bring up your rent to most likely that $100 rent because everybody else is charging $100, as long as it's relative to your competition. So going back in the beginning, if you have gravel driveways and no gate and no cameras and no security, but all your competition does, well, the likelihood of you raising your rent from 70 to 100 without those amenities is going to be unlikely, because they would rather just go to those other competitors if you're going to charge the same rate. So that's where you see your add value. We need to add these things to increase our pricing to match our competition, to be able to get the same rents as our competition. So on this income portion, you can also see if they're charging for tenant insurance. If they're not, that's going to be an add value for you as well. So you can partner with a third party to bring in tenant insurance, offer it to your customers, and you will get a percentage, typically about 50% of that tenant insurance that goes to you, to your bottom line. Also on this income section, you can see if they're charging for boxes, tape, locks, those types of items, as well as U-Haul. For us, if they are doing that, we typically eliminate it. Unless you have a really big facility where you want a manned facility with a full-time person there, for us, it doesn't make sense. We always eliminate that service because we want to have unmanned, by appointment, on-call managers. That will drastically reduce our payroll. So that goes into the expense section. So on expenses, the three highest expenses you're gonna have is taxes, insurance, and payroll. So for us, if we can eliminate payroll from a lot of these facilities we see are 36,000, 48,000. Sometimes if they have multiple employees, a much higher rate, we can a lot of times eliminate that to one person being on call by appointment, and most times we are paying that person $1,000 a month. For that $1,000 a month, our managers are going by the property every single day for a couple hours a day, making sure the property is clean condition, there's no trash on the ground, they're sweeping up the property, they're going to clear out any units that have been vacant, sweep them out, get them ready, overlock people who are behind on rent, and then fix anything that may come up. It's very minimal tasks. We utilize technology, we utilize automation, so that way most customers can book online and not have to ever talk to a manager. Our on-site manager, by appointment manager, is really boots on the ground. Someone's there to help us take care of whatever is needed at that point in time. And sometimes they end up having to meet a client because they might have issues with getting their unit open or something like that, or finding their unit. But another thing we add to properties to help with that situation is QR codes. You can utilize QR codes for any purpose on your property. It's a great way for your clients to get their questions answered immediately. So on this section of the expenses on the profit and loss statement, payroll is typically where we see we can make the greatest reduction on expenses and cut those expenses and reduce them to $1,000 a month. But these mom and pop owners a lot of times do a lot for the property. So they're managing the property themselves. They're cutting the grass themselves. They probably have no marketing in place. And so a lot of times you're having to add to these expenses. You're gonna have to add to the profit and loss statement what it's gonna be like for when you run the property. So you have to add on the fact that you're gonna hire somebody to cut the grass. You're gonna have a marketing budget each month. So more often than not, we're having to add to the expense columns what we're gonna pay because they have blanks. They have nothing written down. A lot of times we see properties where mom and pop owners say their expenses are only 20, 25%. We see from our properties that we run that they're more likely 38 to 40%. So you wanna make sure you're counting the fact, not how they're running the property, but how you're gonna run the property. And a lot of things that get also missed are the taxes. The taxes are always most likely gonna increase when you purchase the property. So it's always different in different counties and different states, but you wanna check with your local tax collector and see how the tax rate gets adjusted after you purchase the property. You also want to get quotes for insurance. Typically, especially here in Florida, insurance rates are constantly rising. And so that's a factor, a big factor that you want to make sure you get quotes for to know exactly what that's going to be like on your expenses. The one thing that I've missed a couple times in the past is the processing fees. If all these people are mostly paying with checks in cash and you transfer everybody over to credit cards and automatic payments, you're paying a processing fee, typically 2 to 3% for the running of those credit cards. So you have to factor into your expenses, that 2 or 3% that's coming off your income. So now that you have your profit and loss statement all mapped out, you see where you can add value. This is how you can create a pro forma to see how, after doing the add value, increasing rents, adding tenant insurance, adding maybe expansion, adding more buildings and more units, what your income will be after all that add value has been completed, what your expenses are going to look like, and then what your new net operating income. And so when you take your net operating income from, say, 100 grand to 200 grand, you double the value of the property, you're forcing the appreciation, increasing the value of the property, increasing your bottom line, increasing your profits for you and potentially your investors. If you want to see how we added value on all the properties we own, click the link in the description where we have video breakdowns of each and every property and how we added value.